to the channel, everyone. Today I've got a Sheffield watch that the goal of today's video is just kind of I'm going to take this watch apart because it's not running. As you can see here, it's wound all the way. The hands move, but it will not click. So the goal is and see if I can put it back together again. A real quick wrist check. This is my GMT that I built a couple videos back. Up here somewhere if you guys want to take a look at that. I did replace the strap on it from the strap that was in the original video. I really like this new strap. So with that being out of the way, with getting that out of the way, let's get started. The first thing we need to do is pop the back of this off. So I'm going to try to get my little case back tool in here. This is just an aluminum case, so there's not really much worry of destroying this. This watch came in a lot, and jeweler's engravings in the back here, so I don't know if this watch has ever been serviced. I don't know much about this watch at all. If you have any ideas about how old this is, please let me know in the description below. It's just a one jewel watch, the jewel being on the balance wheel. So we're going to place the watch in the movement holder. I'm going to have to get the hands of the watch off. So even though there's no real reason for it, I like to, especially on this watch, I like to get the hands in line at the getting the movement secure in the movement holder. I did pick up some new tools. I have an actual official watch hand remover set, which comes with this protective guard. So far it seems pretty nice. Just kind of get up underneath the hands and pry up, and they come right off. And you don't scratch the surface of the watch. Gonna put these away for safekeeping. Now, during this process today, I will be cleaning these watch parts. All I have is isopropyl alcohol. In later videos, you'll see an ultrasonic cleaner. My wife picked up one for our anniversary, partly because she wanted me to have it, and partly because she wants some of her jewelry cleaned. So we have two dial feet screws that we have to undo, and I'm trying to adjust the picture here. This is a new camera, so I'm not really sure I'm happy with it, with its auto adjust feature, but there are two dial feet here that I am desperately trying to point out to you. There we go. There's 1 and 2. And they don't screw all the way out. They just screw out just enough to move a little bar that's holding the movement feet in place, or holding the case back. So with the movement secured, we're going to start with this screw. I'm just turning it just enough to release the dial from the movement. And since it's never been taken apart before, it might require just a bit of prying. There we go. So now we can put aside the dial. And now the real fun begins. Now keep in mind, before I get too far in this process, you're going to see a lot of stuff in this video that is not correct. There's a lot of things I'm going to do that are not correct. This is literally the first watch I have ever torn down and put back together again. Now, I've taken parts out of a watch before and cleaned some areas to make a watch run in order to sell it, but I've never gone through a full service. And I figured that this Sheffield seemed simple enough. There's no real complications. There's not even a second hand on this watch. So it shouldn't be too hard. Now, I'm letting the power out because, as you saw earlier in the video, I had wound this watch all the way up. Now I'm taking off the balance wheel. So from what I understand, the power starts at the mainspring and goes through the gears to the pallet fork and to the balance spring. And somewhere along that path, there is something so gummed up that the movement will not work. But even if I can't get this back together, this will be a learning experience for me. Our next step is to remove this bridge for the pallet fork. Gently prying up. Putting it aside for safekeeping. Now we're also going to learn today whether or not I can figure out where all these gears and screws go, because I'm going to try to keep everything as organized as possible. Now to remove the pallet fork. Removing the pallet fork, putting that aside. You'll notice there's some grease, as you can see, on my glove. Someone's tried to fix this before. The next step is going to be to remove this clamp that is holding the mainspring in place. Removing these two screws. The second screw here. This screw is actually holding the train bridge in place. So now we're going to try to get the mainspring out of the movement. Again, trying to be careful, but this is something that's possibly going to take a little prying. Taking the screw out for the click. And there is a little hairspring or click spring in there holding that in place so that when you wind the watch, it makes that satisfying clicking sound. Next, we're going to take out the winding spring, and this is a reverse thread, so it turns clockwise instead of counterclockwise to loosen. Trying to remove the train bridge now using a piece of Rodico. Gently prying up. I don't want to damage anything, and I don't want any of these gears to go flying around my studio. And you can see that there's a gear stuck to the train bridge. There is our escape wheel. Now we've got this one last gear. So I'm going to try to remove the crown stem here to get our rest of our gears out of the way. There we have the gears that allow you to wind and set the time on the watch. That's a two-piece gear set there. We're going to put that aside. See if we can get the camera. There we go. We've got the camera adjusted. Now we're going to take this bridge off, which is holding a gear and some of the winding mechanism in place. There's our click spring that I was mentioning earlier. Moving the screws, and they are so very, very tiny. Moving the spring mechanisms here. Using a piece of Rodico again. Now this is the latch that holds the crown stem in place. This is what you press down on the other side to allow the crown stem to come out of the watch. And if I didn't have a tool in my hand, it would probably focus a lot better. There we go. And that is the other gear, which I believe sets the minutes on this watch. And now we're going to see if we can get this one final gear out. I believe I'm going to fast forward to this part because this is a part where I look for screws that aren't there, and I realize that I don't have a way to get this gear out of the movement. So I'm going to fast forward to this, and I'll see you on the other side. Now we've got a container full of 91% isopropyl alcohol, which I will be dipping all the parts in and scrubbing them with a little fine-haired brush. Start with the entire movement itself, just lightly scrubbing some of the dirt off, some of the oils and grease that's been on that watch for who knows how long. And then while I'm cleaning the rest of the parts, I will be laying these on a paper towel to dry. And this is isopropyl alcohol, so it should not take too long to dry. And to save time, I'm probably going to fast forward through all of this, so I will see you on the other side. All right, so we've got all of our watch pieces sorted and cleaned off and dried. So now comes the fun part, which is putting it back together. You're probably going to notice in this video that I am not oiling everything that needs to be oiled. And there's the gear that was stuck inside the movement earlier that I couldn't get out. It just needed to be cleaned so that it would come out. So I'm going to put that back in place. But like I said, you're going to see me put this back together, and the end goal of this video is just to put the watch back together. If it works at the end, yay. If it doesn't, then I'm not at a loss. Starting back with the rest of the train bridge here. This is another part I'm going to fast forward because it took me quite a long time to get all of this reorganized. I eventually did it, but so I will see you on the other side. Here you can see me trying to tweak the gears just a little bit to get them in place. I just want to make sure that all of the gears are free spinning. I'm putting light pressure on that train bridge, but not a lot of pressure. You could very easily damage part of the watch doing this, and I'm probably heavy-handing what I'm doing now. Some of you have mentioned that before, and I understand. But I'm learning as I go, so. The rest of our gears seem okay. It's just tweaking that first gear, getting it set. We're working on getting the mainspring back in place. Putting the clamp back on. Get the screw back in place. Now that we've got our train bridge in place and we're getting the final screw in on the mainspring clamp, we'll be able to turn the movement upside down or right side up and work on getting our gears back in place. As you can see here, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the gear mechanism. I do eventually figure it out. It's that spring that we took out earlier is what holds the mechanism in place to click back and forth to allow for the crown stem to move back and forth and set, time, or wind. Trying to push the crown stem in now. And I'm just checking to see that it's winding and pushing in and out. This is where I realized that that little spring is what causes the now it's onto the pallet fork, putting it back in place. Getting it lined up, getting the pallet fork bridge back in place. Making sure it's secure and in place. And not hindering the pallet fork. And now to screw it in place. And this is the part where we lose the click spring. And the joys of trying to find it somewhere in your garage. I will fast forward through this until I can find the click spring. Thankfully, I found a replacement, and we'll work on getting that put back in. I will fast forward through this. Now, I did decide to take this apart just a little bit to go through and try to find one last time where the power was missing. But in the end, I decided that putting the watch back together would be a more satisfying project. You can see here I'm oiling the one jewel in the watch, and that one jewel was kind of a pain in the butt because I broke the bracket that it was on, that it was holding it in place, and had to find another one. And at one point I actually lost the entire jewel. Just testing. And it looks like it wants to run, but there's still something misaligned. However, I did get all of the parts back in place with no extra screws, so it was a satisfying attempt. If you have any suggestions of what I can do to check based off what you're seeing here, if you have any idea what I can do to check and see where the power is going, please let me know in the comments down below. I hope you've made it this far, and if you have, I appreciate you watching. It was fun tearing down this watch, cleaning it, and putting it back together again. And I'm hoping by the time I go to my next watch, I'll be able to do this and have a working watch at the end. As always, I thank you for watching. My name is Bryant. This is the Last Stop Watch channel. Thank you and have a great day.